van updates. I'm going out, waiting for the bus. So today I tried my best to find torque specs for the fucking high pressure fuel pump, and I could not find anything. In fact, it's completely omitted from the owner's manual, which normally has the torque specs. So I fucking guessed. I just tried to crank it as hard as it took me to get the bolts off, and it seemed like it worked. So I put it all back together. It's fucking, everything about it was stressful. There's just like a lot of things that could have gone wrong, and put it all back together, put it back on the engine, and it worked. The high fuel pressure pump is working, and honestly I don't even know if the thing that I tried to fix was the problem, because the same error code is there. And it's the next morning, forgot to finish the video after I got off the bus, so the error code is still there. It is still idling rough. I think it's idling a little less rough now though, but it definitely died on me one time as I was driving around the block after I reassembled it. So there are things to check next. The next thing to check is basically the fuel pressure. This would be the next logical step. I also ordered another part that potentially could be the problem. It's gonna be almost 2 weeks before it arrives, but that should be fine as long as the van runs enough for me to keep moving it for street sweeping. Then that shouldn't be too much of a problem. I also have AAA, so I can get my van towed at least 4 times for free, and hope I won't have to use that. But so I ordered a part that could potentially be the problem, but it might not, I don't know. The main way to check these problems is with the fuel pressure. You need a fuel, and so my van does not have a fuel pressure outlet. There's a nub usually somewhere in the fuel line where you can attach a fuel gauge, and then you can manually check the fuel pressure. But because this is a high pressure fuel situation, there isn't one of those. You can't attach an external fuel pressure reader. You have to use the existing fuel pressure reader on the fuel rail. And my ODB port scanner has a gauge for fuel pressure, but it doesn't show up. The fuel pressure on my van doesn't show up on it for some reason. So next steps would be Googling and figuring out if I can somehow make my current ODB 2-port scanner work for that. Maybe with a different application, because it connects to an app on my phone, and maybe there's like a paid version, or I could buy a professional automotive ODB 2-port scanner that can actually read this. Or maybe not professional, maybe just like slightly more professional than the one I have now, because the one that I have now is very basic. But so that would have really been the right move in the first place, is to get better diagnostic tools. I just thought that I probably had a good read on what the problem was. And so there's another problem which I didn't know about in the beginning. So there's a fuel regulator, and there's also a fuel quantity control valve, and they're both valves, and they both look the same, and also they both have multiple names that sound very similar. And so I actually watched a video of somebody replacing the fuel quantity control valve. That's actually a valve that goes onto the high pressure fuel pump. And I should have known that it was not the fuel regulator, because I knew at some point that the fuel regulator is on the other side of the fuel rail from the high pressure fuel pump. But I thought they were the same thing because they both have multiple names. People call them different things. And they do look a little bit similar because they're both just solenoids with wires coming out of them, but they're not the same thing. They are different places doing different things. And so another thing that could potentially be causing this issue is the fuel quantity control valve being fucked up. Also, I guess the fuel regulator being fucked up could also cause this issue, although ChatGPT seems pretty confident that if the fuel regulator was fucked up, then it would be throwing different error codes and also be dying in different ways. And that makes sense to me because of what the fuel regulator does. So basically what the fuel regulator is just like, it's a valve that closes and or opens depending on how much pressure there is. If there's too much pressure, it opens to relieve some of it, and if there is not enough pressure, it closes to build more up. That's what the fuel regulator does. The fuel quantity control valve is a valve that goes inside of the high pressure fuel pump, and I think just meters the flow of fuel to the high pressure fuel pump. And if that valve, it's a solenoid, so it's just like a little plunger that moves in and out, and it doesn't move in and out very far. I actually took it off of the pump to see, but it's a plunger on a solenoid, and I know that solenoids can go bad, and there's no way visually to know if it's working or not, so I just have to replace it. It's a $50 fucking part because it's Mercedes. This is the first time I've had any specific problems where replacing Mercedes specific parts, and they're all so expensive. The high pressure fuel pump is $500 used. That's insanity. No other kind of vehicle would have parts that expensive. And new, it's $1,000. Oh my god, isn't that insane? It's crazy. It's $1,000 new. That's wild. At that point, I only paid 13 grand for my van. But if I had to do a repair like this once a year, it would not be very long before it would just not make any sense to have this kind of vehicle. It's too expensive to fucking maintain. But so the only way to check if the fuel quantity control valve is busted is to replace it. So I ordered one, but also really what I probably should have done in the first place is get a fucking ODB port scanner that can actually read the fuel pressure, and then I will have to stop guessing. Oh, I forgot, there's another complication, which is that my fucking fuel pump in the fuel tank is not working. And I didn't know that it was not working at first, but I found out the last time I drove it, directly before this, the fuel looked like it dropped to zero, and I just replaced the fuel filter a couple days ago. So I was like, oh shit, I must have not connected some fuel line, and I parked it on a downward slope, and so all the fuel leaked out. That's what I assumed, although there was no evidence on the ground of fuel leaking out. And so I was like, that's weird. Did it all leak out as soon as I parked it and then dried up? And then so I moved it again last night, and the fuel meter was showing completely empty, and the fuel indicator light was on. And then I was like, oh shit, I lost even more fuel somehow. Is there a leak in the tank or something? And I had half a gallon of fuel, so I dumped it in there, and then it started back up, thankfully. And then I got it parked, and then I drove around the block because I was like, is it fixed now? Can I go get more fuel at the gas station? And then the fuel gauge started going crazy. It started going up and down like this. And that was kind of funny. But also now I'm thinking like, fuck, obviously my fuel fucking pump is really fucked up. There's something really wrong with it, although it seems to be pumping fuel. So I don't know how that could be part of the high fuel pressure rail problem. But honestly, I'm not even sure if that is a problem that I need to fix or something. I can guesstimate how much fuel is in there. I have no idea how a fuel pump breaks like that, though, or at least like, also ChatGPT said it could be bad wiring on the harness. I don't know how likely that is. I do know, however, that I've seen videos of people taking apart a fuel pump in the fuel tank, and it's a very simple fucking system. So for it to be sending crazy data like that, actually maybe it is an electrical issue. I don't know. Anyways, the updates. Fan is running, thank God, most of the time, and or at least enough to move it around the block sometimes. And that is where I'm at for right now. And also I just want to emphasize I'm very grateful that everything came back together yesterday. I felt like there were at least a dozen variables where I was just guessing and not sure if it was going to work. And I was definitely very nervous and worried yesterday that this was going to blow up and turn into something much bigger and worse. And I'm really grateful that everything came together. And I haven't even spent comparatively too much money, maybe $150, maybe $180. With buying this extra part now, it's probably more like $230, something like that, but still within budget, especially since I'm using the money I was supposed to be spending at Burning Man to fix my van. So grateful for all of that, and thanks for listening if you're still here.